Hello, loves. Today I have compiled quite a few good stories. Let's get started. Story I, 20M, cheated on my GF, 20F, of 2 years about a year into our relationship. I honestly never thought I'd cheat on anyone in my life. After my first girlfriend, I never cheated and I plan to keep it that way. Me and my GF both go to college together. I've been dating my current girlfriend since October of 2022, and around August 2023 I cheated on her with a hooker. That night I had just discovered an escort website and I didn't know one existed for my area, not even planning on going to meet one. I texted them seeing if I could get a response. Just since I was obviously horny and my GF was asleep in her apartment, most were fake, but when I noticed one was real, I fucked up and decided to drive to the motel location she sent. Once I got there not blaming anxiety but freaked out and thought I had to go through with it since I was already there. This woman was much less attractive than my GF and she gave me head and we almost fucked. I didn't want to, she was so unattractive to me, but I ejaculated in the condom the entire time before anything could happen. I left and the entire way home felt like the worst person alive. I got home immediately, showered, threw up, and laid in bed thinking about what to do. At the time I decided the best thing to do would just be to not tell her, as it would just create distrust in a relationship which is very trusting and great right now. I thought I would be able to just forget about it and commit myself to being a better man and never doing anything like that again, and I still stand by that and have tried to improve myself as a person this past year in the relationship and in general. However, anytime I'm alone or not busy, I find myself just nonstop thinking about what I did to her, who the longer I'm with her, the more I love her and feel awful about what I did. I feel like I need to tell her what happened. She's generally understanding, but nothing like this has ever happened between us before. I can't decide to tell her or not still. I could just continue living with it, but I don't know how long I could do that for. I know for myself I'd never do it again, but it's just impossible to prove that to her. Just looking for advice, love her and don't want to lose her, but I don't know what to do. I just want to sit down with her and explain what happened and her forgive me, but I don't know since she's such a large part of my life now. I don't want to lose her. Story, my M29 girlfriend, F29, is continually getting upset at me. I am 29 years old, recently began seeing a girl 27 years old from Mexico. Lately, I dread going out with her because there's always an issue. This week, I added her to my gym membership and yesterday invited her to go work out together. We were supposed to meet outside at around 5:30 p.m., but she didn't arrive until about 6:15 p.m. and since she doesn't have a phone right now, I had to wait outside the entire time. After our workout, I went to change while she finished jogging. She asked if I was going to take a shower because she was, and I said no. I asked if she minded if I waited next door at a bar where my friends work at, assuming she'd be 20 to 30 minutes, but she got annoyed, so I waited outside the changing room for her. After 15 minutes, she came out, and I suggested an Uber to her place. She got mad we weren't going to the bar next door. I explained I thought she'd be longer, which is the only reason I mentioned it, and didn't mind going, but that I couldn't stay late as I needed to be up early. She gave me attitude and was dismissing me, so I just ordered the Uber. At her place, I stayed longer to let her cool down, and we talked outside. She accused me of not wanting to be seen with her and not communicating properly. I explained I never planned to go out after the gym and had told her I wouldn't be able to stay out late. She accused me of lying since it was 10:45 p.m., saying we had time to go out the bar. I told her I stayed to let her cool down and talk and that I originally planned to be home by 9 p.m. because I'm usually asleep by 9 p.m. and wake at 5 a.m. We talked for almost an hour, and when I went to call a taxi, she accused me of always running away whenever we talk. I explained I had to be up early and she insisted she knew that and wasn't trying to keep me. I eventually called the taxi and left, getting home after 12 p.m. and did not fall asleep until after 1 a.m. I don't know what to do anymore. No matter what I do, she finds something to be upset about. Do I just end the relationship? Or is it this salvageable? The following are just a few of the things she's accused me of or gotten upset over. Got upset after our first date because she saw me out with a female friend a week later. Got upset when I invited her to my place to go for a walk in a nearby park to see a lake she said she wanted to visit. Supposedly I wasn't respecting her integrity as a woman and people may get the wrong impression. This was before we were official. Upset that I wasn't picking her up and dropping her off for our dates, even though I don't drive. Didn't hold her hand while walking. I stopped by a bar after work where my friends work, and she accused me of going there to spend time with my ex since she also works there, wasn't working there that night. Got upset when I told her I wish I could run my hand across her body supposedly after 2 months of seeing each other. That's too intimate of a thing to say. Got upset when I indicated that her skin tone was slightly darker than mine, and she accused me of being racist towards South Americans after she was just comparing the fact that I get sunburnt and she doesn't. Walked ahead of her after an outdoor movie where I got bitten over 40 times by mosquitoes. I wanted out of there. My girlfriend is continually getting upset at me and accusing me of things. I really like her, but I'm at my wit's end. Story, mentally drained from family, so problems. I can't take it. How do I make it stop? I am 31 years old, felt like I had a nearly perfect life. And I was always seen as the perfect daughter. Then I met my first boyfriend 30 years old, and it felt like he made my life better. And then it went downhill. I'm not sure if I need advice or just moral support, I just feel overwhelmed. I keep having fights with him and my parents in their 60s, and most often than not I am not the initiator, and I hate it because it's like I'm never allowed to have peace anymore. If my isn't picking fights with me, it's my parents picking fights with me about him. I feel helpless, drained, and like I want to cry. I don't know what to do. My heart aches. It's like the only time I'm truly happy now is at work when I'm away from everyone I love. My parents told me they hate him, they can't stand him, they want me to dump him, and they say he's going to ruin my life. It doesn't matter what he does, they find a way to criticize him and remind me of how much they hate him. I've been with him nearly 2 years, is constantly thinking negative about them and has insulted them to my face. We've had big fights over this when he has episodes. And I don't think he likes them much in general anymore. The truth is I love my a lot and he does make me happy, even if my posts don't always reflect it. I love being in his arms. He's my best friend. And I miss him when we're apart. We have fun together and he does try to take care of me. But he has some mental health struggles and that's led to emotional abuse toward me during episodes, and that makes me miserable. It got really bad. Long story, something happened that my parents got involved, and while the situation between me and has since improved, his episodes are less and he's worked to improve their relationship with him is strained. My relationship with my parents in turn is not as good as it was because I've stand up for him when I thought my parents were being unfair, just like I've stood up for them when I thought he was being unfair. This is getting to be too much. I feel depressed. I feel drained. Anxious. Everyone is breaking my heart. I want peace. Can it get better? How can I find peace? What can I do? I feel hopeless. My parents and BF don't like each other and they all keep picking fights with me, making me miserable. What can I do to make it stop? Story, spouse is a chronic complainer. He does not see it this way. What is normal? I'm 33 years old. Spouse is 31 years old. Spouse complains about lack of sleep constantly. He's a chronic complainer but doesn't see it this way. What is normal? For context, we have an almost 3-year-old and my husband works from home. Since our child has been born, he's been the primary caretaker because I leave to a medical office Monday through Friday for work and am home by 4 p.m. to take over. He works overnight. He absolutely refuses outside help, even now with his mom who's recently moved into town. He essentially has to function off of at best 3 to 6 hours of broken up sleep spread across pre-shift and post-shift. I absolutely get it. I've acknowledged how crappy this schedule is and continue to make effort to provide him relief here and there, like leaving early from work, taking PTO, etc. And genuinely, when I know for a fact he didn't sleep well or had a terrible day where he has to function off of the bare minimum, I don't care if he says a complaint or two about being exhausted. However, this is an everyday thing. It is the theme of our conversation 80% of the time. If it's bath time or having family time, it's an ever-revolving wheel of very negative ick about grocery shopping. I'm exhausted. And usually his complaints tie to our child. He woke up too early this morning and I'm too exhausted, then rants about how he doesn't know how he's going to function for work. Or it's I couldn't sleep well because of their tantrum. The big picture here is that the reason why he's not getting enough sleep is because of our child's schedule. Just like any parent. But to complain about it nearly all day and all night long. Last winter he spent the entire 3 months complaining on how cold it was, begging every night for the summer to get here. He complained nearly every single day and night how it affected his back, and he'd at least once a day make a comment about praying to the god for summer to get here. We live in a southern state, so once it got here it was hot. What does he end up doing? Complains every day how hot it is. How miserable he is. How he can't work in the garage well because of how hot it gets in there. He works in the garage to take meetings so he doesn't wake up our child, and now I've had a bad taste in my mouth because, didn't you ask for this? He's also extremely unpleasant to be around in the state where he's in his complaining mode. I want to know, am I just being insensitive? He says that his entire childhood family did this. They'd just complain to each other as if it was a fun pastime hobby or something. In my household growing up, it was seen extremely negatively. You'd come off ungrateful, as a non-doer, and nut up shut up type household. I need some desperate insight. I have tried the shoulder or solution. His answer to that was he never wants a solution. He just wants to complain. Is chronic complaining totally normal? Again. He doesn't even use the word complaining. He sees it as a fun pastime and a way to be supported. Story, my 29F boyfriend, 28M, sexted another girl when we exclusive, but not dating. How can I move forward from this? My boyfriend Harry, 28 years old, and I am 29 years old, matched on Hinge in February, met in March, and started dating in May. On our second date, I asked him when was the last time he slept with someone else, and he said 2 weeks. I had a friends with benefits Jake, and I slept with him the morning I met Harry. I told Harry this because I didn't want to lie about it. Harry was visibly upset when I told him this, and when I told my friends later, they all agreed I should have lied about it. The woman Harry slept with before me was a 40-year-old friends with benefits Melissa that he met in 2023. I'm not sure how often they saw each other, but from how he describes it, he was basically a sugar baby. He cut things off with Melissa when he dated his last ex July 2023 to January 2024, but hooked up with Melissa after breaking up with his ex Nina. The way Harry describes Melissa makes her sound a little crazy. For lack of a better word, she would write him emails, send long texts, and leave voicemails for him. Harry's birthday was last Saturday and we were hanging out with his friends. A little after midnight, he received a phone call but didn't pick up. He said it was his mom who was calling. I thought it was strange that his mom would call him that late and that he didn't pick up. I asked him the next day if he called his mom back yet, but he told me it was Melissa who called him. I became annoyed because Nina, his ex, also texted him happy birthday. Nina still has feelings for Harry and has also been sending him texts throughout our entire relationship. He would either ignore Nina or would give really short responses. I'm not a jealous or insecure type of person, but I became upset because I knew if the situation was reversed, Harry would be upset at me if an ex kept texting me and I didn't block them. Basically, I became upset out of principle, if that makes sense. Because I felt like Harry was being a hypocrite. I thought to myself, why does he expect me to block my previous partners if he hadn't taken the initiative to do the same? So I ended up asking Harry to block both Nina and Melissa. He agreed to do so, but I was still annoyed that I had to ask him to do this, when I had cut things off with Jake willingly the day after I met Harry. While Harry was sleeping, I looked through his phone to make sure he blocked them. I ended up finding texts of Harry sexting Melissa about a month after we met. We technically weren't officially dating at the time, but we were definitely exclusive and had talked about being exclusive. I clearly remember that night he sexted her. I was asleep because I had work the next day, but he went out drinking with his friends and was drunk. His messages said things like, I want to fuck you right now, and you want me to fuck you like last time, but when he was sober the next day, he stopped responding to Melissa. In early June, Harry sent 2 messages to Melissa, but it showed up as unsent on his phone. I'm assuming he drunk texted her again, but I'm not sure if he unsent the messages when he was drunk or sober. I confronted him about what I saw. He took full responsibility for what he did and wasn't even mad that I looked through his phone. He explained he had always been insecure and upset at me sleeping with Jake the day we met. I agree that it's weird to sleep with 2 people in the same day, but I slept with Jake before I met Harry. When he texted Melissa in April, he said it was because he was drunk and really upset about the whole Jake situation. He said he has no idea what he sent to Melissa in June or why he texted her, but he's guessing he was upset at me when he was drunk that day. Harry explained that all of his behaviors came from his insecurities and wanting to have a backup plan in case I ever left him for someone better. He said this was the reason he never blocked Melissa, combined with the fact that she would buy him things. He said that although he was texting Melissa those things when he was drunk, he didn't actually mean them. He never texted her when he was sober. Story, I, at 28F, don't know how to mend my relationship with my ex, 33M. Ex 33 years old and I am 28 years old were in a long-term relationship that was majorly toxic. Both parties contributed to constant fighting, abusive threats, emotional manipulation, psychological abuse, cheating, etc. throughout the duration of this relationship. Before you write this story off and make the obvious comment that this relationship is unhealthy, just hear me out and put yourself in my shoes. I really love this man and in a lot of ways will always love this man. However, after years of putting up with toxicity and selfishness from him, I had finally had enough. Long story short, we moved out on our own and parted ways, except we never actually stopped talking or seeing each other. We go through phases where everything is wonderful and then I'll find out that he's been looking for new connections on dating apps. When this happens, I tend to wander off and start talking to new people as well. Both of us act like this is unacceptable behavior even though we are not technically in an exclusive relationship. He will tell me how much he loves me and then when we spend time together it seems like all we do is bicker or make jabs at each other. On top of that, there hasn't been any physical intimacy in weeks and he is pushing and pressuring me into it. I feel uncomfortable with this, but he makes a very fair claim that physical intimacy is an important factor for him. It's clear that the correct answer is to break up and go no contact, but for some reason I just can't seem to do it. I clearly love him very much even if I'm not completely emotionally invested in the relationship right now, and we don't seem to be meeting one another's needs. I also don't trust his words because they don't seem to always match his actions. I truly don't know what to do or how to get through this. We have been terrible to one another and I feel this immense guilt in both leaving and staying. My friends and family can't stand him and vice versa. Any advice on how to leave, get over this, or even fix this is encouraged. Ex and I had a toxic relationship but can't stop seeing each other. He ruined the relationship and I ruined the breakup. I feel like I'm either stuck in a cycle of abuse or that maybe I am the abuser. Story, was I right to stay in my marriage after discovering my husband's past behavior? Hi everyone, I've been reflecting on my relationship 3.5 years and wanted to get some outside perspectives. My husband 27 years old and I am 26 years old dated for 2 years before getting married. During our dating period, I noticed he had a lack of boundaries with his female friends, which was a constant issue for me. He had been cheated on in a previous relationship, which led him to make several changes in his life, including maintaining close friendships with women. After living together for a month and loving each other's company, we decided to get married. Our long-distance relationship had been draining, so the decision felt right at the time. However, a few months into our marriage, I discovered that during a rough patch in our relationship, he had spoken badly and untruthfully about me to some of his close female friends. This happened several months before our marriage. My husband struggles with wanting to look good in front of his friends and finds it hard to say no to them. Learning about this past behavior was devastating for me. I felt incredibly hurt, angry, and disrespected, and I immediately considered separating, despite us only being married for 4 months. When confronted, he begged for another chance, assuring me that he had been loyal and respectful of boundaries for the 3 months leading up to our decision to get married. He promised to show me that he had changed and asked for forgiveness for speaking behind my back. Despite my anger and hurt, I chose to stay because I love him deeply, and I could see he was different from the man he used to be. Since then, he has stuck to his boundaries and has not crossed any lines with his female friends. It's been a year since that low point in our marriage. We are still long distance, but our love remains strong, and each day has been a journey of loving and learning about each other. While I don't regret staying, I sometimes wonder if I was right to stay from an outside perspective. Was it fair to myself to stay in the marriage after feeling so disrespected? Am I being unloving to myself for forgiving and moving forward? I would appreciate any thoughts or advice from those who have been in similar situations or can offer an outside perspective. Discovered my husband 27 years old spoke badly about me 26 years old to female friends during a rough patch before marriage. Wanted to leave but stayed because I love him and he promised to change. A year later, our love is strong, but I still wonder if staying was right. Looking for outside perspectives. Story, feeling unappreciated and neglected in 6-year relationship, seeking advice. My fiancé's 35 years old and I am 29 years old have been fighting more recently because his actions seem selfish. We've been together for over 6 years, but I feel like a broken record constantly repeating myself without any change from him. I've asked him to learn how to cook and be more considerate in the bedroom. He doesn't cook at all, and when he tries, it's a disaster. In the bedroom, he always finishes, leaving me unsatisfied. Only recently has he started to clean up after himself because he was disgusted by his own bodily fluids. He hasn't matured much and still expects me to handle most things. When I went on a 6-month work trip, I hoped he'd learn to be more self-sufficient. Instead, he left the fridge untouched and didn't make any effort to cook, despite promising to make my favorite dishes. When I come home late from work in the gym, I often find him on the couch playing video games or watching TV, with nothing prepared. This frustrates me, especially since he doesn't take any initiative. Each year I've become more vocal about my needs and frustrations, which has led to more arguments. I feel like I'm talking to a toddler, reminding him to treat others how he wants to be treated. He often damages my things and tries to make up for it with money, but that doesn't solve the problem. I'm torn about whether to stay with him. My family loves him and I don't like to share anything bad about my relationships with anyone, even my friends. I can't imagine life without him, but I'm tired of feeling unappreciated and neglected. I'm seeking therapy to sort out my feelings and figure out the best path forward. I feel like I've tried everything and made every initiative. I'm tired of being set memes in hopes of me forgiving him. I wish he'd stop apologizing and actually solve problems with me. My fiancés and I have been fighting more. I handle most of the chores and feel unappreciated. He doesn't take initiative in cooking or in the bedroom. Considering whether to stay with him and seeking therapy to sort out my feelings. Story, help should I, 23F, break up with my boyfriend, 28M, airing all our dirty laundry. My boyfriend, 28 years old, and I am 23 years old have been officially together since February 2024. We started seeing each other in late September 2023. Though we did have an agreement to be exclusive and not see other people since October, we just weren't officially a couple, but by all merits we were one and we both agreed on that. This is the first relationship for both of us, and as a chronic overthinker, I struggle to differentiate between anxious and legitimate thoughts. My boyfriend partied a lot for 2 years and had a large, outgoing group of party friends and ravers. Initially, everything was great, with only a few minor arguments. However, January was a tough month. My BF went out for drinks with a female friend, Lena, who is his brother's ex, and she confessed her feelings for him. He immediately left and told me everything. But I was hurt because we had agreed not to have one-on-one outings with the opposite sex and because he didn't tell me beforehand. He explained that he saw her as a sister, as she had been with his brother for over 5 years and they had broken up only a few months prior. Although I forgave him, it triggered significant trust issues, and I started checking his phone, with his permission. Afterward, I discovered messages from December where he and his friends discussed attractive women they saw while partying, and he made a comment about one, saying, "Too bad I can't." I forgave him again after he explained that his mentality was influenced by his friend group and their constant partying and festival attending. He also gave up the partying lifestyle and distanced himself from the toxic friend group to be with me and make our relationship work. In April, I learned that in December he had invited a female friend, Sarah, to a festival we were attending together in April with his friend group. I knew her as someone my BF's friend, Mike, was in love with and believed until then that the entire friend group had invited her. However, my BF gave me a false perception of her. She didn't know anyone from the group of 12 attending except for my BF, and while Mike was attending, he would be with his separate friend group. I also found out that my BF used to like Sarah before meeting me, though they had only communicated through Instagram and had never met in person. He had deleted his messages with her in January after the fight about Lena broke out because he said he knew any little thing would trigger me, which is true, TBH. My BF said they needed another person to fill an apartment vacancy and that he invited other friends before landing on her, but that before meeting me, they had already discussed her attending with his friend group. He promised me he didn't pursue her once his friend confided in him that he liked Sarah, which was before he met me. He said they only talked about parties infrequently since then. But now, I discovered that in January he invited her to another festival happening in July, supposedly for the same reason, vacancy. Despite repeatedly asking if there was anything else I should know, he always denied it. He said he forgot about it since it's been 6 months. I don't know if I can trust him anymore. He cut off all his female friends and the toxic friend group after what happened with Lena. Which he offered to do. It was not a demand I made. I never had a problem with female friends until it became one. And even then it was his choice to cut them off. I only wanted him to block Lena. I have seen the difference in him. He is loyal, prioritizes me, and promises on his late parent that he never wanted to cheat on me and that he only saw Sarah as a friend and didn't think anything of the invite. And while he has been great since then, I struggle to process the pain from those months and earlier. I'm unsure what to believe or if this situation is normal. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Yes, I was the first person he invited to these festivals, and the names are fake. Is what my boyfriend did acceptable and not grounds for a breakup, and am I wrong in feeling betrayed? Story: am I overreacting that my boyfriend doesn't propose to me? Me 31 years old and my partner 31 years old are together for 7 years now, and we just bought our very first house last week. We have been together since we were 24 and we are not engaged, and I don't know if he ever want to propose because he's not really talking about it. Even when I ask him we just arguing about it, so I never thought about marriage when I was younger, but then when we both turned like 26 to 27 I started to show interest about it, and at the same time everybody around us, all our friends got engaged, had wedding, expected their first child, etc. And I mentioned him that I want to get engaged before I turn 30. He never said anything. And I just kept repeating myself and he just kept saying nothing. I felt guilty and bad for mentioning and saying things like this to him because I didn't want to put pressure on him, but at the same time I wanted to know his thoughts and also let him know what I want. We were already saving up for deposit to buy a house, and once he said that after we have the house we want he can buy a nice ring and propose, but right now he doesn't have £5,000 to spend on a ring. I already knew what ring I want and that doesn't cost that much, and also I would never want him to buy me such an expensive ring anyway, so I told him this and I sent him the rings I like, and I told him he can choose which one he wants to propose with. I just wanted him to know I don't expect anything expensive, I just want to see that he is serious too, just like me. His answer was that if he wouldn't be serious he would not buy a house with me. This was like 2 years ago. Since that, every holiday we go on, every night out together, every birthday, every family events we go together, I think he'll do it, but nothing. People around us keep questioning him about it and he just says, oh, our plan is to buy a house first and then I can afford a ring, but it's not our plan, just his. But it's awkward for me and it makes me angry because I already told him I don't want expensive ring and I wanted to get engaged before 30. Every time we talk about this we just arguing. He gets offended because I say what I think and what I feel, and then he doesn't really speaks to me for days. I just realized that we don't want the same things from life and it makes me sad. I'm 31 already and I don't want to say yes anymore to him because I feel he just ruined everything. I don't know what to do anymore because I can't have a serious conversation with him about this, and even if I would have one I feel nothing would change. I don't want to propose to him, that's just not me, and he would not want that either. I think the communication between us is very, very bad, and I don't know how to fix it because I know if I mention this he'll not talk to me. I just don't want to wait anymore and I don't want to say yes anymore. And I hate this feeling. Even when I ask him we just arguing about it. Story: my brother is abusing drugs and breaking the law. I don't know what to do. Hello, I am 23 years old. My brother, 18 years old, was just caught by me and my parents doing hard drugs yesterday right after a cop came to our house to give him a warning because he got caught violating his restraining order by bringing an underage girl into the house. He started acting weird 6 months ago when he met a new friend group. My parents gifted him a car when he turned 18 and he crashed it, making it undrivable. He then started using my mom's car, which he then totaled. And then finally he stole my dad's brand new Tesla in the middle of the night with a bunch of underage kids and his friend Billy. Turns out he's the supplier, and drove it into a tree, totaling it. Since then he was been sneaking people into the house, mostly an underage girl 15 years old who's my dad's best friend's daughter, which he claims he's in love with. The family put a restraining order on my brother so they wouldn't contact each other, but they still do, and he got caught by the cops because she snuck into the house to bring my brother drugs. I discovered this because he left his Snapchat open on his computer after we caught him with the hard drugs. Ever since the first accident I had been begging my parents to give him consequences for his actions, but they continued to ignore my pleas until the final car was smashed. Since then, we have been arming the house with ring cameras, sensors, and alarms. As of now my dad has probably spent almost $1,000 on new security alone. My parents are saying they want to section my brother section 35 Massachusetts, but I really hope they actually put him in rehab or inpatient. I hope they actually go through with it. My brother was a quiet, sweet, and sensitive person with not a lot of friends before this happened, and now it's like talking to a zombie who won't stop lying. I don't know what to do with myself. I find myself getting angrier and angrier at him, and I feel guilty. He won't stop lying about everything with sometimes a shit-eating grin. Last night he jumped out of an 8-foot window in the middle of the night. I can't get a night's rest without an alarm going off, and am having extreme anxiety and paranoia. I don't know how involved I should be in this. I feel like a parent at times. I don't know how I should be reacting/treating my brother. I want to move out, but I feel bad leaving my little sister 13 years old to deal with this alone, and my dad also has been saying he doesn't want me to. I really do want to leave, but I don't know if it's the right thing to do. My brother is abusing drugs, smashing cars, messing with underage girls, and I don't know what to do. Story: I, 38 am so exhausted, depressed, and beat down from never feeling attractive enough, even to my wife, 38F. How can I beat this feeling? I'm 38 years old, around 175 pounds, and right around 6 feet tall. I run and lift fairly regularly, and eat relatively healthy. I feel like maybe I could work on my midsection a little more, but I'm still in light athletic shape. I feel like I'm pretty average and plain in the face and maybe look a little young for my age. In the last few years I've really invested time and money in skincare and think it has paid off. I get fairly expensive haircuts every month or two to keep looking nice. And yet after all of that I am still so insecure about my appearance. I look in the mirror and I just never like what I see. No matter how much I work out, no matter how well I dress, no matter how much time I spend with different hair and skincare products, I still feel like there's just something about me that's off, and still never good enough. Like I just look a little goofy and just a little out of the ordinary, as if there's a little something unexplainable that puts me into some weird territory. Part of what makes me think this is that I don't feel like there's ever any external cues to let me know that all of my work in taking care of myself is paying off. My wife doesn't pay me that much attention. I never ever get compliments from anyone on how I dress or how much working out has paid off. When I am by myself in public, women never give me a second glance. There's just so much that tells me that I am just not enough when it comes to this. I know that a lot of people will say that attractiveness comes from other things as well. How funny a person is, how charismatic they are, stuff like that. I am feeling fairly confident about that too. I am a little shy and introverted until I get to know someone, but after that I feel fairly sure that I am charming and funny and caring for people. I just don't get it. I wish there was anything at all to tell me that I had some worth in terms of my appearance. Not having anything to go on makes me doubt myself and even hate myself at times. I know that things like this are supposed to come from within, but I feel like if I am only ever telling myself that and no one outside of my own biases ever tells me anything, it's just a delusion on my part. Story: we, 25M and 25F, need to change our entire relationship after a car accident. I don't know how to talk to her anymore. My 25 years old girlfriend and I have been together for 6 years, and we're talking about getting married someday when all of this happened. I am deeply in love with her, and want to know how to love her better while keeping myself sane about this. We met in college, where we were both loners, but connected over our love of running. Both of us are super into every aspect of this hobby, even more so than a lot of normal people who run. I gotta get into it all basically. We were both obsessed with types of shoes, the exact running times on certain local trails, niche techniques, water bottles, etc. Literally everything. And I'd met other people who liked running before, but not in the obsessive way I do/did. When I met her, it was like finding the other half of my soul immediately, as cheesy and cliché as that is. We built our relationship first as running buddies, and our entire relationship blossomed from there. We would go running together every day, and race each other in some of the most highly competitive races I've ever run. I think we've only ever skipped a handful of days every once in a while in our entire relationship. Our shared hobby is our life, and she is my whole life. We have so many memories on specific trails, and whenever we used to go out we'd talk about the latest news related to our shared interest, new sneakers that were getting released, new water bottles we wanted to try, crazy obsessive shit like that. Fast forward to the present. My girlfriend was in a massive car accident 8 months ago and is paralyzed from the waist down. She is in a wheelchair, and it's been very hard on us both. All of the hard, scary stuff is over, but we're trying to settle back into our life and literally everything is different. For one, we can't go running together anymore, and we might not be able to ever again. She's in physiotherapy, and the hope is that one day she will be able to run again, though not for a long time. I miss this aspect of our relationship so much. We are still partners in the sense that we share certain finances, and we have been learning how to go out on dates, even having to navigate all the accessibility checks around her wheelchair, but the thing we built our relationship on is gone, or at least won't return for a long time. We've tried going to some of the easier trails, and she wheels beside me while I walk, and it was nice the first few times, but I keep thinking how much it's not the same. And since everything happened, it bums her out to talk about anything related to our shared hobby, so we just don't anymore. This whole thing makes me feel terrible and sad and frustrated. Before all of this, we had the best communication in the world, but I don't know how to talk to her about this without making her feel like I'm blaming her, or like she's not enough. I don't love her any less. My 25 years old girlfriend 25 years old, and I fell in love through running. After a car accident, she cannot run anymore. I don't know how to talk to her about this. Story: my BF of 4 years told me to find someone else if I want something long-term and that he doesn't believe in monogamy. I'm 26 years old, we've been together since I was 21 years old, he is now 31 years old. We've been together for 4 years in a monogamous relationship. I have a good job and have been stable since we met running my own business. He had a stable job, then 2020 happened, and he hasn't been stable financially until the end of last year. We also live together. We were discussing the future, and I don't even necessarily want to get married, but a promise ring would be ideal. He brought up having children about a year ago, which I would like to have some form of commitment if we were to go ahead on the child situation. I grew up in a broken home, as did he, and I wouldn't like the same for my children ideally. I expressed worries of being a single mother, and he said, "You wouldn't be, we would co-parent, and you have family and friends, you would be fine." He said no to the promise ring and that he could see being with me for about 5 more years, maybe longer, but not long-term. He told me, "If you want to be with someone forever, you should go be with someone else." Which was very painful because this has been the longest relationship in my adult life. Apparently, he doesn't believe in monogamy, which is what I thought our relationship has been since the beginning. A lot of confusion with that because now I question if the last nearly 5 years I've been with this person was even real. I don't want to feel like a burden, and I don't know why he ever asked me to be his girlfriend if he doesn't believe in that kind of thing anyways. I'm just truly confused because it didn't feel like I was speaking to him, just a stranger or something. A rug has been pulled out from under me. We never fight or have conflict, and usually things are good, but I can't ignore this conversation. I feel hurt and duped, to be honest. Even in times of emotional need, he tells me to go to therapy instead of offering comfort. I feel that things went great up until the last year because I've had a lot of unexpected, uncontrollable situations that have been putting a strain on my happiness, not regarding the relationship, and everything hasn't been sunshine and rainbows. I'm at a loss. This has been a huge slap in the face. I thought we were on the same page up until now, especially when he brought up children. Is it so crazy to ask for a little commitment? Or delusional to want to grow old and have romance together? He's not much of a romance guy. I'm pretty sure he's just comfortable and not deeply in love with me. I could use some advice. My boyfriend of 4 years doesn't believe in monogamy despite our monogamous relationship and told me to go be with someone else if I want something long-term. Super confused because he brought up wanting children with me. I never asked for that or marriage. Story: friend didn't invite me to his wedding. My 30 years old friend 29 years old got married last month. He hadn't really shared much in terms of his wedding plans with me, and I assumed was having a low-key event with just family, which is why I hadn't been invited, and I was fine with that. Until he sent me a text apologizing for not inviting me, and that the event was for family and friends only. His reasoning was that he couldn't invite me because then, by extension, he'd have to invite the rest of the community that we associate with. I told him family and friends only. Got it. We are Bengali, and there is a large Bengali community where we live, but neither of us are really involved in the community. The only real participation is attending a funeral of a community member. I thought that was a weak, flimsy excuse considering our minimal involvement with the community, and then I heard from a mutual friend that a few community members were actually invited and attended as his father is a big member of the community. In addition, some of the other friends he invited are those he met not too long ago, 1 to 2 years versus knowing me for 20 years. As a grown man, I'm a bit ashamed to say that this hurt me quite a lot. I thought we were super close since we talk on a weekly basis, hang out often, and have been friends for 20 years. I have a small family and very few friends. I considered him one of my closest friends, and he would always tell me things like, "I know you have a small family, but think of me and my family as your family." I feel like he could have invited me privately if he was worried about having to invite the community. Which he ended up doing anyway by inviting some members. Funnily enough, some community members were surprised that I wasn't there, and I told them I wasn't invited. My family was also hurt and offended by this situation and know his family very well. Friend still texts me on a weekly basis like nothing happened since we have many common interests. I hardly reply, hoping for some advice on how to go about things. My close friend didn't invite me parents to his wedding but invited other friends and other community members. Story: should I break up with my girlfriend? Hey, so this is complicated, but I will try to keep it simple. I am 27 years old, and about 3 months ago, I met 27 years old a girl and we hit it off right away. For some background, she is one of the first real relationships I ever had, and I am used to being alone and mostly just keeping to myself. I live with my mom and enjoy video games, anime, and all things nerdy, so I'm that type of guy. Needless to say, this is all new to me, and she also has 2 kids and an ex-husband, all of which she was upfront with me about. For the first few months everything was amazing, especially the S word. We were so passionate and I grew to really care for her and her kids, who in retrospect I may have met too early on. Anyway, I got sick recently and she has been going through a lot too, planning this party for her and her family. She texted me today saying that she wanted space and is going through a lot, and I assumed that meant I could get out of driving the hour and a half to her house to go to the family party, and sadly, that made me happy. The reason I say sadly that made me happy is because I feel guilty and bad that I was happy I had a chance to bail on that. Anyway, we had a long conversation tonight and I kinda told her I feel like we are rushing and I'm not ready for the commitment of everything due to some of the stuff I said in the first paragraph, how I am used to being a loner homebody. But she has been nothing but amazing and nice to me, and even helped me come out of my shell a bit. Even still, I can't help but think that eventually I will want to break up because someday she will want to move in together and have me take a big responsibility role with the kids, and I don't know if I will ever be ready for it. I expressed the exact paragraph above pretty much word for word to her, and she will says she wants to stay together and to not worry about the future and live in the moment. I tried to get her to break up with me, I guess, by making it clear I wasn't sure if we were going to last forever and wasn't ready for a long-term commitment. She has kids and other drama. She instead said she loves me and wants us to work out, making me think she is a prize and it would be selfish and I would regret it if we broke up, because the only reason I want to is just so I can go back to gaming all the time and doing whatever the hell I want. And I don't think that's a good enough reason, because overall she really does care about me, and I know for a fact a girl like that is hard to find because she is amazing, so I may regret it later if I end things. Story: I, at 28F, have been seeing my ex, 33M, and don't know if I should break it off or try to fix things. Ex, 38 years old, and I am 28 years old, were in a long-term relationship that was majorly toxic. Both parties contributed to constant fighting, abusive threats, emotional manipulation, psychological abuse, cheating, etc. throughout the duration of this relationship. Before you write this story off and make the obvious comment that this relationship is unhealthy, just hear me out and put yourself in my shoes. I really love this man and in a lot of ways will always love this man. However, after years of putting up with toxicity and selfishness from him, I had finally had enough. Long story short, we moved out on our own and parted ways, except we never actually stopped talking or seeing each other. We go through phases where everything is wonderful, and then I'll find out that he's been looking for new connections on dating apps. When this happens, I tend to wander off and start talking to new people as well. Both of us act like this is unacceptable behavior even though we are not technically in an exclusive relationship. He will tell me how much he loves me, and then when we spend time together it seems like all we do is bicker or make jabs at each other. On top of that, there hasn't been any physical intimacy in weeks and he is pushing and pressuring me into it. I feel uncomfortable with this, but he makes a very fair claim that his physical intimacy is an important factor for him. It's clear that the correct answer is to break up and go no contact, but for some reason I just can't seem to do it. I clearly love him very much even if I'm not completely emotionally invested in the relationship right now, and we don't seem to be meeting one another's needs. I also don't trust his words because they don't seem to always match his actions. I truly don't know what to do or how to get through this. We have been terrible to one another and I feel this immense guilt in both leaving and staying. My friends and family can't stand him and vice versa. Does any of this stand a chance? I feel insane even asking this, but at the end of the day I love this man. Any advice, words of wisdom or commisery is welcomed. Ex and I had a toxic relationship but can't stop seeing each other. He ruined the relationship and I ruined the breakup. I feel like I'm either stuck in a cycle of abuse or that maybe I am the abuser. Story: my husband told me he also loves someone else. My husband, Grant, 33 male, and I, 30 female, have been together for 12 years, married 3. We originally were living in my home state but moved to his after his parents' health started to take a decline. We've been living here for several years now. In that time I met a girl, 26 female, at work about 3 years into us moving, and after bringing her around me, my husband and her were all friends. We had a period where we didn't talk with her for maybe 2 years due to issues in our relationship with how my work was going, and her with a toxic friend group. TBF, we should have stayed and helped her out, but my husband and I were having a tough time barely seeing each other. Eventually we reconnected at the beginning of the year, and we would bring her out of her house to hang out and let her decompress from home life. A few months ago I noticed Grant was a lot more silent than normal, barely texting when we were at work and being somewhat physically distant. I eventually asked him what was wrong, and he said he was going through some mental issues. We both are diagnosed depressed, so I thought it stemmed from that. We made up, but there's still a very subtle hint of tension. When hanging or chatting in person, Grant is reserved, not as much in chat but definitely in person. I noticed in our friend chat he was the one more likely to initiate conversation than when it was just us, and I thought he was just trying to help keep her occupied. He initiated hangouts, which was weird because we were both home buddies. It started to nag at me when we would all hang out, and he would buy things for her too. I'm the one in the friend work group that people go to for advice, so I tend to pick up on things more than others, and about a month ago it sort of dawned on me that there was more than friendship there, at least from him. Recently, Grant was even more in his thoughts, and it was concerning me. I eventually got him to start talking, and at first he was very vague, and kept insisting he loved me. I didn't doubt that, but I had to guess he had feelings for someone, and guess again it was our friend. My heart sank when he acknowledged it, because it seemed like at first he couldn't admit it to himself. He eventually told me that he sort of figured it out when I confronted him about the distance, and had been battling with himself on how to tell me. He did insist he did not love me less, but loves her the same as me. I'll be honest, I'm probably still in shock and I'm not sure how to process. I feel like I should have been mad when he told me, but I can't bring myself to be. I'm not mad at her because she doesn't know. She's also in a relationship of her own and has never really expressed interest in anybody but the person she's with. And I understand people can love differently and the same for different people. We both just didn't think we would have to deal with this. I'm just not sure how to proceed. This man is the love of my life, and I don't think I can feel the same way I do for him as someone else. Leaving him isn't an option for me, I just need a way to navigate this. Story: IF 30, don't know how to cope with my boyfriend, M, 41, of 2 years and his inability to grasp reality. I'm 30 years old, struggling to cope with what I believe is my boyfriend, ex-boyfriend's, 41 years old, lack of a full sense of reality. To provide some context, this all started about 2 years ago, 3 months after we started dating, when he had an episode of acute psychosis and committed himself under the Baker Act. He was afraid of people breaking in the windows and thought someone had broken into his roommate's room, so he broke down his roommate's door. Since then, he has been functioning relatively well and appears to be of sound mind in casual conversations. However, he has occasionally mentioned that he still sees shadow beings but has learned to live with them. He doesn't want to discuss this further because he fears being labeled crazy. He also reaches conclusions that make no sense and refuses to listen to me or accept any evidence that contradicts his beliefs. The most notable and persistent example is his belief that I supply weed to the local dealer I have bought small amounts from before. Despite having no reason to think this and me offering proof and even sharing my GPS location, he refuses to believe me. He doesn't believe almost anything I say, which is stressful and odd. When I was recently in the hospital, he didn't believe what I told him the doctor said either. I'm fed up with being treated this way and constantly being accused of lying. I've told him to stay away multiple times, which is why I referred to him as my boyfriend, ex-boyfriend. However, he shows up anyway, acting as if it's a normal day. If I tell him to leave, he refuses and just sits on the couch, knowing I can't physically make him leave. Recently, he's been talking about missing his family out of state. I've encouraged him to go be with them, as it seems he takes out a lot of his negative emotions on me and might be happier there. But he responds that he'll do what he wants, either staying or going, and won't be chased off by me. I really don't know how to cope with any of this. I'm 30 years old, struggling with my boyfriend, ex-boyfriend's, 41 years old, disconnection from reality. After an episode of acute psychosis 2 years ago, he still sees shadow beings and holds irrational beliefs, like thinking I supply weed to a local dealer. He refuses to believe anything I say, even about my recent hospital visit. Despite telling him to stay away, he shows up and refuses to leave. He misses his out-of-state family, and I've encouraged him to go, but he insists on doing what he wants and won't be chased off. I don't know how to cope with this situation. I neglected to mention that his mother has been diagnosed as bipolar, so I often wonder if any of this behavior from him are symptoms of bipolar. I have attempted to bring this up to him, but he shuts me down and won't even consider the possibility. Story: thinking of stepping away from a 5-year friendship after she let her boyfriend come between us. My 30 years old friend Alice, 28 years old, and I initially bonded over shared trauma. Last year I stopped drinking, smoking due to the impact on my mental health. I'll have the occasional drink or edible, but my social life no longer revolves around getting intoxicated. Alice still binge drinks socially, gets high every day. When I turn down her offers to smoke or drink, she is visibly disappointed, repeatedly asking if I'm sure. Although my sobriety isn't a problem with my other friends, I sometimes cave to pressure from her. Recently I hosted Alice and her partner David for dinner. I texted her a few days prior explaining I was dealing with some family issues, not in the right headspace to entertain, suggesting we go out to eat instead. She talked me into hosting anyway, saying how excited she was, promising to make it stress-free for me. Spoiler alert, it was not stress-free at all. My partner had to leave early, so the three of us hung out in my living room afterwards. Despite my grief over said family troubles, I tried to put on a brave face. Alice produced a joint, I accepted, hoping it might relax me. For the next 30 minutes, I could feel myself talking too much about our upcoming trip for my 30th. David, who is very shy, didn't say much. At one point he returned from the bathroom saying he felt ill, was going home. I offered him my bedroom to lie down, but he insisted on leaving. Alice stayed and we went out dancing. 2 days later, Alice revealed David was hurt I had ignored him, asked what I had against him. I was confused because I recalled interacting with David that night. I told her the truth, that I hadn't meant to snub him. If I was less than socially adept, it was due to the weed. She kept repeating that I had ignored him. I asked for examples, but all she could say was that the conversation wasn't inclusive of him. I asked why she didn't do more to include him in the conversation then. She got upset, said I was trying to minimize my behavior and evade accountability. For the sake of our friendship, I agreed to apologize to him directly. She told me not to, as he wasn't ready. I was confused, but left it alone. She spent my birthday trip getting wasted at every opportunity. In a moment of sobriety, she again pressed me to come clean about why I ignored David. I got upset because I'd already told her the truth. She dropped it. The next day she gave me the silent treatment, then bought a bottle of tequila to drink on an empty stomach, while on psych meds. I confronted her. Cue the same argument. I decided to leave, enjoy the rest of my trip solo. I accepted her apology but expressed concerns about her drinking, which offended her. Since then we've had other conflicts that have left me emotionally exhausted. I've had to fight tooth, nail to assert my boundaries. After our latest fight, she is eager to mend things, but I'm starting to think this friendship isn't healthy. I hate to throw away 5 years of friendship, but I feel I need to protect my peace. After my best friend accused me of ignoring her boyfriend, subsequently ruined my 30th birthday trip, I am having trouble trusting her, think it may be time to step away from the friendship altogether. Story: How do I, F32, communicate to my best friend, F32, that her career goals are becoming an obstacle in our friendship? Hello everyone, I am in a kind of pickle with one of my very dear friends. She is very nice, talkative and social but very career-driven, which is a good thing, and I have been pushing her to do more with her life. She has been taking care of her sick dad for years and didn't go out much. I met 2.5 years ago and her dad unfortunately passed away in April. Since I met her she started working a job to have more of a purpose, and then she got a second one since she felt like one wasn't enough, both government jobs but still at junior level. Even last year we didn't do like a weekly hangout, more like once a month and a half kind of meet to do a catch-up of our lives. But since the beginning of the year we meet up just twice, once in January on my birthday and then unfortunately when her father passed. I have been trying to reach out every other week to check up on her and if possible meet up, but she just takes on every possible chore that her job gives her voluntarily, even if we have plans to get up the ladder faster by doing more than her job description. This was even before her father passed. The pickle is that when sometimes friends from outside the country or relatives come to our city she makes time for them, but for me it feels like I have become a burden and she doesn't want to meet. I brought it up with her once after my birthday and she did tell me that she wants to focus more on work since she hasn't been able to due to her father's illness and really cares about me and considers me like family, but every attempt to hang out seems to be shut down because of work. We sometimes make plans and then she doesn't follow up with a meeting hour, so I text her. She then says that she is working so she cannot make it like today. She more often than not doesn't reach out to inform me about the cancelled plans. She's a great friend to me and I do care about her, so I was wondering how do I bring it up to her to meet up a little more often, still not weekly due to her work, but maybe once at every 2 months max since my feelings are getting hurt by this constant rejection, poor planning on her part. My best friend who is very career focused at the moment doesn't make any time for a meet-up, cancels plans without telling me most of the time. How do I bring it up to her that this is hurting my feelings and our friendship? Story: How to bond with my boyfriend's 32M friends, including his ex, without letting it affect our relationship. My boyfriend, 32 years old, and I am 29 years old, have been together for about a year and recently moved in together. He's been connecting with his friends after a year and a half of distancing due to mental health issues. One of his friends is his ex-girlfriend, who had a toxic end to their relationship. She recently sent him an emotional email, and I suspect she might still have feelings for him, which makes me uncomfortable. He reassured me there's nothing to worry about, but I want advice on how to bond with his friends and navigate this situation without letting it affect our relationship. I'm 29 years old and my boyfriend is 32 years old. We started to date sometime around this month last year. Found each other on a South Asian dating app. We had a fair share of ups and few downs, but we love each other to bits. Loyal to each other, and we want to start a life together. We recently moved in together as well, and our parents are supportive of this. My boyfriend was not doing okay mentally for quite some time and distanced himself from his friends for about a year and a half. Completely absent without leave. They tried reaching out but gave him space. One of the persons from the friend group was his ex-girlfriend. They dated for about 2 years. It got really toxic towards the end from what he told me, since she started to force him into marriage very early on during the relationship as she was 3 to 4 years older to him. Although he liked her, he wasn't ready for a lifetime commitment, especially if it was that forced. He tried to tell her, but she never really understood, would also sometimes cry about her ex whilst living with him. She couldn't secure a job, so no financial support to pay rent, so she asked to live with him even after he decided to part ways with her. He agreed since it was a tough time for everyone. Some forms of intimacy continued, but he expressed the discomfort he was facing that this was happening and that it's not good for either of their mental state if they decided to part ways. She then moved out, but reached out to him to give it another chance, and this time with no pressure of marriage. Skip. She now is married to a dude who she found through a dating app. We also recently met his friends, after he broke 1 year of long-lost silence with them. Everyone's extremely happy to see him and angry for ghosting. Basically everyone expressed happiness because they were meeting me for the first time, but I didn't see any kind of emotions from his ex-GF who was also present there with her husband. She only spoke about food with me, didn't try to get to know me at all. She just asked him how he was. Basically very minimal talks and emotions. Apparently, just a year back, she sent him another huge email, expressing how she terribly missed him, how she missed his laughter and late-night talks, missed having him in his life. That he should stop ghosting her and talk and still be great best friends with her, how they used to be. I can't help but think that she still has feelings for him, and that is somehow not sitting very well with me. Especially now that we'll be hanging out with the gang often. I don't want to let this affect anything because he really needs his friends, and so do I need this social connection. I have no complaints about my BF. He's the greenest flag out there. He is extremely honest about everything, and I expressed this to him. He saw where I was coming from and rest assured me that we have no control over this and to not let this affect me. I will try to heed to that, but I just want to know if I'm crazy to think this about her. Bye and see you again in the next videos and stories.